Do you ever spend way too much time in details? For example, do you take way too much time fiddling with optimizing a piece of code, or I don't know, maybe fiddling around with settings in an app for too long just to make sure that you get the perfect setting, you understand the program or the code exactly like it should be. It should be just exactly black or white, exactly like you want. And then later on, you find that you've just spent an hour or two just unnecessarily wasting time, when in reality, the result is generally exactly the same for the customer, for your manager, for the user. If that's the case, I would like to talk to you today about this. This has been something that I've struggled with for a very long time, and I've recently gotten a lot better at it. My story is I've been in IT for almost 21 years now. And during that time, I've learned a lot. I went deep into a lot of different technologies. And as an engineer, it was kind of my job, my duty to really get involved and understand intimately the ins and outs of, I don't know, Windows Server, Active Directory, PowerShell, really any type of technology or product that I was working with. I prided myself in getting really, really deep in things and making sure that whatever I'm doing is exactly how it should be, and that I have left no stone unturned. I think that that's helped me to some degree in my career, because there's been times where it feels good to think, oh, Adam knows that, he's the expert in this, or he's the SME, the subject matter expert in this particular technology. And that's great. I mean, I think that's a very good skill to have, that you can really dive deep and understand things. But on the flip side, there's always that absolute. You always have to be cognizant of what you are doing and why you are doing it, and the end result. So let me give you an example of that. So for those that don't know me, I'm big into PowerShell. I'm big in the PowerShell community. Been blogging, been using PowerShell for many, many years. And as recently as last year, year and a half, I was pretty much writing PowerShell full time. That was my job, to write PowerShell. And if it's your job to write PowerShell, you're supposed to be, you're supposed to know what you're doing. You're supposed to write good PowerShell. Since you're getting paid to write PowerShell, you're supposed to write it the most efficient way, the most manageable way. Decoupling. All of the coding best practices if you're a developer. However, now I'm in a different role, to where I am a business owner. I am a writer. I have lots of different kind of hats that I wear, and PowerShell is one of them. So I still automate various things here and there. But what I found was that when I first started this new kind of role that I'm in, I would keep the same type of granular detail that I had before, and it was taking me forever to do things. And now, since I wasn't on salary, and the amount of time that I spent on a particular project or particular task directly related to how much money that I was making, not by the hour. When I don't get paid by the hour, I get paid by a fixed cost or an internal project that I have. I was finding that it was taking me forever to do things. But when I got that project done, this is just the crowning achievement of my career. This script that creates this VM that provisions this website just perfectly. Oh, look at there, I shaved off 10 milliseconds off the time. And when I reflected on that, I thought, it doesn't matter. 10 milliseconds doesn't matter if, breaking out a script that's, I don't know, 50 lines long to think, well, in the future, I may have to manage this breaking out these things, breaking out these pieces into individual functions. So that'll make this code much more manageable in the future. And in reality, probably not even going to look at it in the future, to be honest with you, because it was such a minuscule project. So that ended up costing me a lot of time and thus a lot of money getting these things done. I couldn't shift that mentality over that I used to have. So what I've realized is that your work doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be good enough to get the job done. And you can always go back to it, but probably you're never going to go back to it. But we could go into a whole new conversation on technical debt, but it's a really fine line between good quality work and just getting it done and getting the project out the door or the task done. What I've done that's really helped me to balance my my OCD kind of engineer mentality of it has to be perfect. I have to do all this research ahead of time, and I have to make this piece of code just this perfect specimen of what I think it should be. What I've done is I've given myself an internal deadline. Even if there is no specific deadline for the task, I would say that, okay, based on my current list of projects and tasks that I have to do, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes to do this. And I'll explicitly start on the task. In my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start on this task. And then by the time 30 minutes rolls around, I'm constantly looking at the time thinking, okay, well, I can't do this. So, okay, I'll leave that behind. That's not important. If you have a deadline set, what I found is that you look at and you pay attention to those important things, those priorities that really matter. For example, if you are, let's say that, trying to think of a good example here. Let's say that you're spinning up I always say a VM. So you're spinning up a virtual machine somewhere. You're automating this process of bringing up a virtual machine, installing Windows, getting the software configured and everything like that. Well, the end result, start with the end in mind, with the end result. What do you want to do? Well, I want a SQL server that I can connect to that has this username and this configuration, and be done with it. So I do that. I set it up ahead of time. Think, well, it's going to take me, maybe an hour or so. So then I will just explicitly start on the task and make sure that I finish it in an hour. And even if it takes over an hour, what I found is that I will, it forces your brain to really pay attention to the things that matter because you're on a deadline. You don't have time to fiddle with the little stuff that doesn't matter. It's all about the end goal. And another tip that I've used in the past is to develop the tests. So some of you don't write pester tests or integration tests for some other language. It's a really good habit to get in. So what I've also done is to kind of a hybrid, it's kind of called TDD or testing. You know what? I am totally grown. TDD, test-driven development. That's it. What I found is that if you can, most of the time, test-driven development is for unit testing, so it's testing the code. For infrastructure people, infrastructure engineers, system administrators, system engineers, those kind of infrastructure folks, what I've also found is you could build the infrastructure tests ahead of time to make sure that you're hitting on only the certain things. So let's say, for example, if you are, again, setting up a SQL server, let's say that, your end result is, okay, I want this server to listen on port 1433 on port SQL. Okay, I want the port open. I want to be able to query, a set of records. I want to be able to log in as a specific Windows user or a SQL user. You set all these things up in the set of tests ahead of time, and at first you run all the tests and they will all fail, and then eventually you just keep working at it, and the only thing that you possibly you work with is only making sure that test passes green. So for example, if you wanted to listen on port 1433 for SQL, well, I know I need to install SQL Server. Well, you install SQL Server, that's it, nothing else. Once you install SQL Server, you try to run the test. Oh, it fails. Okay, why is it failing? Oh, this service is running. Okay, that's good. Oh, it looks like the firewall is set to block port 1433. So you only open that individual, even down to TCP 1433, and then you run the test again, and it passed. Okay, great. Next, going on the next one. Now, can I query these records? And you only do what is absolutely necessary to fulfill the goal of that test. That's how you can do test-driven development with infrastructure testing, and it's also a really, really good way to force yourself to not get so bogged down in all the details. That's one thing that I haven't done in a while, unfortunately, but that's another good thing that I've seen, of set a deadline to make sure that you are, that you're not spending an unnecessary, absorbent amount of time on details that don't matter, and then also set up those tests ahead of time to make sure that you have, your tests are built in code, your deliverables are there in code where you can just hit the button, run it. Okay, red, okay. The tests almost act like a task list, if you will, to say you can go red. Okay, I need to do this one. I need to do this one. I need to do this one. Coupled with your deadline, you'll become much more efficient at what you do, and only focus on the end result and the deliverables that you need to.